What is happening, everybody, man? Thank you guys jumping into another episode of Expert Mentors Live. We've got Mr. Fred back in the house. What is happening?
Hey, John, it's great to be here today. It's a lot going on for everybody, and same here. So it's a lot of exciting things happening. But yeah, we're kind of enjoying the last month or two of summer here before leaves change and things turn white.
Yeah, this is my my second full year of getting to truly experience all 4 seasons, and so it is kind of magical, right? Like when you truly, up here in our neck of the woods, to where you get to have the true 4 seasons, and it feels like Oklahoma, Texas, yeah, you get them, but you get them for like a day,
Right. Yeah.
And some days you get all 4 seasons in one day, back there.
Yeah.
So
I used to, when I first met you, I would be, talking to you weekly, and I'm like, your weather, like, yeah, you were crossing like, yeah, this morning it was 28 and now it's 96 and
yeah,
then tomorrow it's like, something else. So we always have this thing up here, like, you don't like the weather in New England, just wait an hour and it'll change. But you guys really had that going down in Lawton for sure.
yeah, it is. It's pretty wild. So, Fred, I'm excited to have you back on and being able to jump in, which is kind of cool because you can kind of trace the journey right through the episodes over the years, and being able to have you here on kind of the Expert Mentors platform where we kind of teach through things. I know you and I've had some really great conversations. I mean, so many interesting points and experiences, and your journey of career prior to real estate is really remarkable. And there's so much there that can be learned on a global scale, which aligns right in beautifully with the EXP model, especially if you can get your head out of kind of the local market and being able to expand and being able to see things on a global scale, like you've been able to see and experience is really awesome. But when we look at kind of the path of your real estate career and journey of where it's at, and it's not for a lack of effort, because I feel we've tried everything, maybe not everything, but we've tried an awful lot of stuff to get some traction and get going in the market. But I love how you really break down, and I'll let you unpack it and unpack the market.
Sure.
But when we look at kind of the distinction between, your market and what we're breaking into, because every market has a phase or a segment of the market, if you will, of luxury. And I think the Luxury Institute looks at luxury as the top 10% in any market. So some markets, luxury might kick in at 500. Some markets, it might not kick in until 2 million. I think here in Pittsburgh, I think it's luxury kicks in around 900. I think is kind of where that is. So knowing what that is and knowing what that segment of your market, but you like to look at and have kind of coined your market as a legacy market. And how do you battle through legacy conditions to tap into the luxury segment? And I think that might be a good jumping point, Fred, is for you to just break down what that means. What is a legacy market? And obviously we understand the luxury segment, but what does kind of the words mean when you think about what your market really is?
Yeah, it's a great question. Just quickly, I'll touch on when we got into residential real estate, Elaine and I, some of you know Elaine, she's my business partner and spouse, and we knew going in that we would, we needed to learn a lot. And so we've been on that journey. We also knew pretty swiftly that as a 2-person team, maybe we'll add some support mechanisms in it, but we knew that we needed to scale something, right? Because to get to the revenue and the return on time investment, and here in our region, the thing you look at is scale the price, because so many neighboring towns have, very high median prices. And so to answer your question, like, we have Portsmouth the town that I live in is probably a median's just under $1 million. The town next to us, Rye, the median's 1.3. The town next to that is Newcastle, and the median's in the, pretty close to 1.9 or 2.2 in that range. Changes, So we knew that we wanted to get into that business, and we knew we needed to get good at our craft before we stepped into that business. So we got to that place. But then what you see, in markets like big city markets, Dallas, Boston, Chicago, Atlanta, the transient luxury market is high. Like people are moving in and moving out, and you come up to a small coastal community like this, and money's not, people aren't moving in and out as fast. And so, but there's still beautiful, high priced homes. And what we see when I say legacy market is just that the legacy companies that we all know, the Sotheby's and to a certain degree Compass and Christie's and others have a foothold in that market because the changes aren't happening rapidly. They're not happening rapidly, and they get a foothold. And so I started thinking, well, if I was 20 and or 25 and coming into this market, I would play the long game, right? But we're at a different time in our career, and we want to be able to penetrate that market more swiftly. And so we had to kind of think about how we would approach that. And the very first thing that I, migrated towards was, Elaine and I migrated towards was creating a brand. And that's not my name. Mm-hmm. And that's really, to me, that's really important, because if I'm building a brand around my name, which you do concurrently, right? You have a brand, you can build your reputation around that brand. But if the brand is just Fred Butts, then I have 10 years of work ahead of me to really build a brand, right? But if I build a brand that feels luxury and sounds luxury and looks luxury, well, then there's going to be some people that will feel they'll be comfortable with the visual, the aesthetic of the brand, and then mix in Elaine and I and our concierge type services, and we can penetrate that market more quickly on a brand name versus my name. And that was a big decision. We knew that going in. We've always been big proponents of building a brand versus versus not building a brand, and in all our past efforts. So
no, I love that. And when you look at moats that we want to establish and put around our business, and moats are meant to be disrupted. That's why we're always paying attention. We're looking to where the moat and the opportunity, and we want to make it as wide and deep as possible as we can around our business. And you listen to folks that look at brand, focus on brand, not only for themselves, but their clientele at a very high level, the Gary V's, the Alex Hermosis of the world. And they both have been on record stating what they believe as the final moat for our business before it's disrupted completely. The final moat around our business will always be brand. Yeah. And I think understanding the one thing that will outlast most of us and most of our businesses is that brand, and nailing that. How do you balance, Fred, because the one business we're all in is I'm in the John Kitchens business. You're in the Fred Butts business. So how do we balance that business that we're in, which is the business of selling ourselves, and trying to build this luxury look, feel brand when you interact with individuals and folks that live within the community? How do you establish, listen, I know I'm in the business, and maybe that is the distinction, but I'd love to kind of get your take on it, Fred. I'm in the business of John Kitchens, but here's the brand for our business. So how do you kind of balance an understanding what you're trying to accomplish, but also the reputation that you're wanting to build?
Yeah, it's great. That's a great question. And I we've talked in the past about one of my past businesses, this apparel sourcing company, and I'll use that as an example. We
That's
were
a great one.
early in our bootstrap startup process, but I had created enough infrastructure and appearance around the brand. I knew what I was capable of. I was completely confident about that, right? But I needed to get in the door. And so I created that environment, that visual, that aesthetic, that everything around it. And we got into this one door early on in our growth of our company, very early. And, that ended up being our single largest customer for the whole tenure of our company's existence. And so here, it's not one or the other. It's really, to me, they move in parallel. The brand gets you in the door, because think about this, how am I going to scale Fred Butts and what he stands for? And I can't stand up in the middle of the room and grab a microphone and, unless it's my event, and start talking about myself. But I can market the brand all around, and I can allow that brand to feel luxury. It's not impossible, but it's to me, two things. I think one is building a brand like this allows the brand to take on its own life, its own persona. And then as soon as we're in the door, it's Elaine and I. We represent we're the face of the brand. And so you build them concurrently. And the other part, is that you can't sell your name. I can't be like, I'm not going to finish this real estate part of my journey and be like, hey, would you like to buy the Fred Butts real estate business? Yeah, you can. Maybe you're going to buy the accounts or the database, but it's very different than if you have something that is its own entity. And people in the area, when they say, hey, who would you recommend to help sell my house? And they say Arch and Pillar. Maybe they'll say Fred Butts. That's fine. Elaine and Fred. That's great too. But I'm a big fan of building things that have equity in the build, and I've been doing that since I learned that at L.O. Bean in the early '90s, and it just kept building through other branded corporations I worked through, and so even in real estate, I knew that building a brand for us was going to be the play. I think we need to get in. That helps us get in the room. It helps as we start to proliferate the Seacoast area with marketing material. It's the icon is really unique. It's all the right visual. It's trying to establish that. So they run concurrently to us. They run alongside each other.
Yeah. And how does, how well is it adopted quicker with that brand versus your name? What is the market, the legacy market, absorb faster?
I think this is a great question. Listen, if we just wanted to go sign on with Sotheby's, then we have the brand name. We can skip all the create the brand. It can be the Fred and Elaine group. We can call it almost whatever we want under Sotheby's. Sotheby's is our ticket to entry. But if we're not with a legacy company, then you have to think, am I really going to penetrate this clientele with my name? They don't know anything about that name. But if you create a company that has a very professional appearance, the website's right, the everything within it is you're sweating every detail. You're not looking past these little things. Everything matters. Then you create this persona. Maybe the person that meets me at an event, they get to know me, and but maybe they hand my card off to someone that didn't meet me at an event. That person's going to go directly to the website or to my YouTube channel or to something else. And so I think that the brand gives the opportunity to market yourself and across your region, in our greater Seacoast, let's call it, in a way that would be very difficult going after this market as just a name, And listen, maybe in 10 years, after we've really taken a big chunk of this market is our goal, then we can concurrently fly the brand with our pictures and, other things, and people are going to, but if you're starting out, in my humble opinion, there's a bunch of things you can do. Like EXP Luxury has a fantastic program that helps you understand the various ways you can penetrate luxury markets. And there are a lot of great steps, but I think that for us, building the brand is a critical part of it. So
I love it. So when you start establishing, and we're starting with the brand, being able to get in, become awareness, top of mind, top of funnel, they've got to get some grasp of you, and you're focused on that. You're introducing how within, and I love keeping the theme of a legacy market, right? Yeah. Of people that are used to, Sally over at XYZ legacy company. She's been here for 50 years, right? She's the 80-year-old still showing properties. What is, when the market is dominated with the old legacy agents, how do you start to execute on the marketing to penetrate the marketing's mind share?
I think that one of the things I've kind of learned both with the EXP Luxury and some of the training in there and my own inclination, and I don't mean to keep reverting back to that situation with the apparel company, but if I told anyone I was going after the client that I'm referring to, they would have been like, you're crazy. Like, everyone goes to them. Everyone. Why would you think that you're going to be any different than everyone else? Like, because they're like so sought after. And yet, if you go in there and you really offer a service like ours, a concierge service, a very high touch point, white glove type service, then you market that. And then you to Gary V's point, that's where the personal brand overlay exists, where we're going to have to, make sure we have all the videos available to people. So when they're trying to learn about us, they really get a feeling for how we operate and what we do. I think in many cases, up and down the price structure of homes, people would like to have some choices. I know a lot of people go with the first agent they talk to, but they'd like to know that they could choose from a range of agents. And I think that if you position yourself, and that's what we did, we just positioned ourselves with the perfect amount of detail and information, knowing that we would do the things we said we would do, and we would behave the way that we were marketing ourselves. And then I think, like any growth in new business, you start to, you get the first and the second and the third larger home, and they start to feed each other. These aren't massive communities. Not everyone doesn't know everyone, but they're not super dense, metropolitan areas. So I think that, I hope I answered that question, but I think it's really, I think it's the beginning of any venture like this is, okay, what's the easiest way to get in the room and to get handed off to other people? That's the brand. And when I'm in the room, then Elaine and I are being ourselves and being professional and talking, listening more about other people and their needs than talking about ourselves. And I think that's, that's been our way always. So,
yeah. We want to be interesting, so we have to be interested, right? To be able to pull that off. Yeah. So Fred, when you look at markets like the market you're in, what do they want, right? What does the market want from a professional like yourself? Like, what, getting into kind of ICP, what's keeping them up at night? Are they more of a pain? Is it more of a pleasure? Is it more of a desire type? So when you start working through, kind of thinking through the brand, the reputation you want to create, but we also have to have kind of a gauge of the clientele and the opportunity in the market. And I feel like, trial and error, we've landed here. Yeah. But knowing, if you were armed with the information stepping into the market to make the right decision from day one, what information do you have now that you could have told yourself when we entered the market of, hey, I'm going to save you 5 years. This is the clientele. This is the opportunity. This is what's, dreams, desires, nightmares, all of the above that they're thinking about, because we shift to the marketing, world-class marketer in us is who we have to become. And we need to know who they are and what their pain is. So then we can craft the story to join the conversation in their head. So as you've, really uncovered this legacy market with legacy homeowners, what's keeping them up at night? What's the pain pleasure situation?
So I think, in this space, right, we hear when we talk, in this case, let's say luxury, there's luxury, there's intro luxury, there's luxury, and there's uber luxury, right? And any market that exists, and their pain points and their worries are often a little different from place to place. Some of them are, going to move into a luxury, a beautiful home. Maybe it's in the $1.5 to $2 million range, but they still have a family and they still have to get their kids into school, and they, proximity to things are important to them. And so you don't get to sidestep a lot of the same fundamental needs that exist at lower price points. It's just that more money's being spent, and their expectations can be higher. And then you add these other categories, which, as you get into really high price point, you're looking at people that time, right? They value their time. They want to make sure that if they engage with you, that you're doing all the heavy lifting and you're just making it as simple as possible for them. But they also want some exclusivity. They want to be a part of some place that maybe doesn't have a lot of listings, and they want to be part of that exclusive setting. So to them, that might be the most important thing. They're patient, they're going to wait, and when the right opportunity comes, they want that house. And then there's some, there's a big middle space there that people could go either way. So I don't think it's really like, for us, I think that a lot of people moving into the space, into this coastal area, because it's becoming really sought after, in this New England area, the whole coast, not just Portsmouth, coast of New Hampshire and Maine, southern Maine. There's all these different reasons. And, we have some little pockets, communities like Newcastle is very sought after, very high priced market, a small little like subsection of Portsmouth, if you will. Newcastle's very expensive and it's very exclusive. And there's like Cape Nettic up in York has the same kind of like micro setting of homes right on the coast of Maine on the rocks, and they're near a lighthouse. And those are very, very sought after homes. Sometimes homes in those areas stay in the family for, decades, if not, up to, even up to 100 years sometimes. So there's all these different categories. And I don't think, I think that it's my experience that all of them have slightly different needs. It just really, but when you get into the more really the high price point, they're looking for something very specific. And it could be a dream. It could be a dream to be on the coast, for sure. Same thing applies. Like we have had clients that are looking for a dream house on lakes, because we have a incredible lakefront access here within 1 hour of our home. There's a massive amount of some of the country's most beautiful lakes, and people want to be on those lakes, and those are often very aspirational. I can see my family being growing up on a lake and having access to that. So it can go either way.
Yeah, that's it really is fascinating you get into certain price points. I mean, there's always an element of pain, but for the most part, when you get into the higher end, more affluent, more elite type markets, right? I think you're spot on, right? They want differentiation. They want who's representing them matters, right? It's the prestige. And if you can sprinkle in a little bit of exclusivity in there, and that's hard for some people. So the reason, kind of asking and getting clear on these questions, because it really comes down to, the most important job for us as marketers is to really then be thinking about, okay, what's my offer to this type of market? So what is the value proposition that I'm going to offer them? But more importantly, what am I offering that they want? What am I offering that they might not need or think they need, right? We know it's important. That's the broccoli, but they want to buy the chocolate. So in our offer, what's the chocolate? And obviously we know doing the right thing, positioning, everything to position their home in the best possible light, to drive as many eyeballs, people through the door, supply and demand, all of the above. But in their mind, when you're crafting and thinking and working on the offer to a legacy market, knowing their wants, their needs, kind of analysis, what's keeping them up at night, what are their dreams and desires, and you start to craft it, how do you take into consideration, the chocolate that'll hook them, and then the actual broccoli that's going to solve what they're trying to solve? How do you think about the offer to a legacy market?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. When we look at a legacy market, it's kind of, any company, I think any company providing any service has multiple offers, right? And you tailor your offer to this, we'll call it like a micro niche. So, okay, if people want to be in Newcastle or Cape Netick, well, then the offer to them is exclusivity and discretion. Those are the two things that are important to them. And so we want to double down on that part of the process. And those folks assume that you're going to carry the weight and you're going to provide the right service. But we always make sure they understand that, and we then we get in, when we get into it, we over deliver. Like, we deliver such a high level of analysis and project management and everything that comes with it that most people that we've provided services for have kind of just shaken their head and said, wow, like, we've never had that level of involvement. And so through that, we've been able to really pleasantly surprise people by over delivering on something we said we were going to do, but really doing it, and maybe them not understanding what it really looked like until it was happening. So
it's so good. Yeah, it is. And it's the whole thing. I love I'm not a fan of under promise, over deliver. I am a fan of over promise and over deliver. Right. So how do you structure it enough? And it's like you said, you're talking to the clients. I remember Leanne was running into some difficult clients, and she was just bouncing some things off of colleagues, and they're like, "You do what?
Yeah,
we don't do that. We don't do that. We don't do that." And her and I were having the conversation, and I'm like, "That's why you keep doing it."
Yeah,
because in her mind, her peers, they're not doing it. But then I'm like, "Did you go look at their numbers? Like, look at their numbers. Look at what they're doing." And are they doing more business than you by doing half of the work as you? And she goes, "No, I'm smoking them all." And I'm like, "I know, because you're doing the things that they're not willing to do." And so what's critical? I love, so the exclusivity and the discretion, I love that. But how do you get word out on the street that you operate with exclusivity and with discretion? How do you let the market know that that's how we operate?
Right. Those are, it's possible to market those through materials, and through, and by social media and the type of content you put in your social media. You can create a sense of exclusivity by doing that. And I think that's important. I think that it's one of the pillars of what we'll do will be our social media content, which is we're forming now as we speak. And what does that look like? Well, it means that we'll have more things on our social media that speak to the luxury market, whether that's articles from the Robb Report, or whether that's auction information from Christie's, or things that will attract people and help them understand that, that we understand uniqueness, and we understand the value of exclusivity, and so you start to create that sense about the brand and about what we offer for services. And then, of course, when you're in the room, and I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but when you're in the room and how you present yourself, and as we start to have more events, it's also important how you present yourself. If it's a fine line, but if you present yourself as the company that sold 400 homes this year, well, you're not probably an exclusive company.
Mm.
So it's a very fine line. You want to sell a lot of homes, right? As many as our team can support, but you want to sell the homes or buy the homes for the right clients in the right places with the right actions and benefits. And if you do that, then the brand you build is about that. It's not about 400 homes. So people may be doing that, and that's great. That's just not the business that we're trying to build.
Yeah. I think it's bigger ticket, a lot deeper, more hands-on. Therefore, my next question, as kind of keeping the marketing theme before we shift into the avenues to be able to make this happen, you get into now kind of the conversation on really the only business metric we have control over, which is pricing.
Yeah.
And how do you, one, obviously, and maybe how you thought about pricing with the apparel company, as how do you think about pricing as we move into luxury market inside of, a luxury segment inside of a legacy market?
It's a great question. We have decidedly, even prior to the rebranding of our company, decided that we're not discounting our prices. We offer a level of service that is unlike most everyone that we cross paths with. So if we're representing the buyer, we can see what the seller does. We know it's not what we do. If we're representing the seller, we see all the buyers. We also know it's not the same amount of things that we do. That's our model. Doesn't mean they're not successful and good agents, and they're clear about their product and they sell that product. But for us, we know what we have. And so I think we don't discount that. And in fact, I think, going forward, it'll be interesting to find I think there'll be some exploration about where that price lands. Maybe it's quite candidly higher than the normal 3%, and it becomes that premium to have this type of service. And with that, I will tell you, there's like an obligation. Like, one of the things we did with the apparel company is we said, okay, we're going to go after this client that they're really big, but the prices were not that high. And that company that I mentioned was the foundation by which we built our company. But we kept, like, from the very next day, in the mentality of that company was continual improvement. You got to sweat every single detail about how you can make this experience better every day. Every time you have a transaction, every time you go through something, you got to think, where in the middle of that was that not what I think it should have been or could have been? And you got to want to make it better. And if you keep doing that, if you keep doing that, then you reserve the right to be paid for those types of services, and I think that there'll be a discovery in our space about what that price will look like as we go into the higher price points. So
yeah, I think it's really looking at where breaking down the fundamentals of pricing, and when you play in a more, like you said, exclusive, discretion, more affluent, higher price point market, there is a little bit of a balance there to where you charge a fair price for the amount of work that you're willing to do, and truly the result that they're going to get. And when you can, break it down in the return and, real quick of being able to put X number of dollars back in your pocket.
Yeah.
I've found, and maybe, you can shed some light on it. I think it's more so looking at that bottom dollar and what the return, because most of those folks know kind of what the investment, or they have a broad range of what it's worth, and then what's my return I can get out of that. So if you can start to speak some of that language, and maybe that'll be a kind of our transition question into, how do you connect with the clientele, but being able to have, a rate that they take you serious, but they don't be like, that's a little sporty. It's like, okay, that feels good for what you do and the brand and the look. Because I think too, even back to your point with the brand can also amplify or deduct what you're able to charge as well. So all of those factors, I think, go into play when you really think about the pricing. And in your market for what you do, when you overpromise and overdeliver, in my mind, in a legacy market, you can definitely charge a premium versus, and to your point, man, you don't want to play the discount game, because that's just a race to the bottom. And we always joke, I mean, somebody will always do it cheaper. There's somebody out there that would do it for free. And so when you play that game, you're going to lose. But when you look at that kind of conversation on the value creation to solving their problem and how we get compensated, it to me, it's all there's the science, but there's a lot of art to it as well. Is that how you're kind of feeling? And maybe that, like I said, this is a good segue to the conversations and how you're getting to the customer. Do you get a good feel for what they want by just having more conversations than anybody else in the marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, it always comes back to conversations, and I'll just touch quickly on that price conversation. One of the things that we are to a fault sometimes is we're fair. We're fair. Elaine and I just are fair. That's in our DNA, and people don't pay the country's best lawyers for the time that they're in the courtroom. They pay them for the thousands of other hours that they've spent in the courtroom before that event. That's what you're paying for, right?
Yeah.
And so I just say, like, on the price side of things, like, we have had a buyer that came to us and said, we like this house, would like to buy it. Well, that's different. There's no search involved, right? This is the house. And so we offer, we are always fair in those moments, I guess I would say. But as we, sometimes it's case to case, because some of these large properties can have extremely heavy costs to get into marketing them and to prep them and do everything. So they're very individually based. But that aside, the conversations are where it always starts, whether we're in there, we got into their house and that's where we're having the dialogue, or whether, the other really important part to this in our community is how do we get in front of that audience? And so for us, we have very decidedly gone into a lot of private club environments and exclusive environments, areas where people, those people congregate, and that are buying these luxury homes. We got in, several years ago. Elaine started the charge to get involved with our community, and we've done an incredible job of being a part of the community, both at the city council level, and we have an incredible chamber of commerce that Elaine is deeply involved with, and I am as well. And so you start to conduct yourself and the integrity of who you are in all of those environments. And then you get into these private room, I say private, but private clubs and other things. And you network in that space. You let people know who you are and what you're about. And I think that good people good capable people with integrity there's always a need for that. There's always a need for that. And so, yeah, we've definitely, we've found that, again, in this legacy space, that getting into these private, more exclusive settings, country clubs, things like that, we have an enormous amount of nonprofits in the Seacoast area, maybe like, on a per capita basis, is as much as many any city in the country probably. They're wonderful. They do so many wonderful things, and we've loved them for a long time, and now we find ourselves getting more closely aligned with some of them and our colleagues, and getting kind of enveloped into that setting, and that's just another way to help people understand your values and your integrity, and so that's been a really important part of kind of breaking into that space. So.
Yeah. And so how did you guys go about identifying it? And we're talking about like the club network that you're involved and plugged into, which has been game changer, I think, for you guys in your business and your relationship building. What is the, kind of the process to go through, what to think about, what to look for if, somebody listening in is like, oh man, that's a great idea. I should, get really involved in this or that. How do you go about determining, finding, deciding, investing, just everything that it takes to really, I want to say work the room for you and your business? What are all the factors that have to be considered when choosing to invest your time and your money into the right networks?
It's another good question, John. This local private club is called the 100 Club, and we had wanted to, or been looking at that club for some time, and almost initially on a social level, just because we felt like people that were entrepreneurs and had similar mindset as we did might be in that space, and it would just be nice, right, on a social level. And there is definitely that. But as it pertains to our business, it's, you really want to look at whatever city or town or place you live, like, where are the people, if you're trying to get into this higher price point, where do they aggregate? Where do they come together? What are their interests? Well, we know that this private 100 Club is a great space for that. We also know another place called the Music Hall, which is like a diamond in the center of Portsmouth that is a reconditioned, renovated music hall. It's been around for decades, and it's a nonprofit, and everyone loves the music hall. Everyone really, it's just I could go on and on about it. So there's a little directors club you can be a part of in that, as a donation to the music hall, and you get to be part of these events that they have on a monthly basis. Well, it turns out a lot of the people at those events are at the 100 Club, and those people at the 100 Club and at the music hall, well, they also are at the gala auctions for a lot of the nonprofits, and so you want to be at some of those events. And they're at the Habitat for Humanity golf event that was just last week I was at. And so you just start to see people from place to place to place, and you don't meet them all at once, right? You see them, you might have seen them 10 times, but eventually they're like, oh, I've seen you at a few places, and you get to chat with them, and then that's the opportunity to let them see the authenticity of who you are, like the reality of who you are. And I think that's where, our intentions at the end of the day, albeit to sell in the luxury market, our intentions are to help people solve problems. Really, that's the intention. We choose to do it at a higher level because we think it aligns with our professional background and our demeanor and the way we approach things. But at the end of the day, we're trying to help them solve problems, whatever that problem is that they have that revolves around real estate. We're trying to be their source for that. And I think that we both, Elaine and I, authentically exude that when we talk to people. So,
yeah, I would agree. And how do you guys think about like getting into from a networking side of things, and somebody's listening in and like, okay, cool. I would love to do that. Right. I'd love to go in and connect and network, but how do you have a balance spread in the room to where you're coming in, creating and adding value, and not just being a dang old vacuum cleaner and trying to be a taker and suck up all the energy out of the room. How do you dance in that room to where you become a little mysterious, you become, interesting. Obviously being interested makes you interesting, but like, how do you dance in those type of rooms to where people will want to gravitate to you and not run away from you?
That's such a good question. I think the key to that process is we're trying to build relationships in that room. That's what we're doing. Yes, we would love to walk away with business, and that's certainly in the back of our mind, but we're trying to build relationships. And I'm a good one, and Elaine will tell you this. I'm a good one for going to these monthly socials at the 100 Club, and I will go in, and you wait in line initially to get your first drink, and I'll be in that line, and I'll meet somebody, and we'll get our drink, and I'll peel off to the left, and I'll be there pretty much for an hour. So I've met one couple the whole time I'm there, but that's me. Like, I'm gonna keep asking them. I talked to one wonderful group that one of them came from a place up in northern Maine that I know well, and I just had a million questions, and that relationship is so deep now. It transcends, like, what do you do? And that's not a relationship. That's like a networking event. I want to meet people, and I'm curious about people, and I'm curious about their business and their kids. I just think people's journey it's fascinating, people's lives and journeys and what they've done. I think that Elaine is the same way, like, in the chamber, and, she'll probably, in the chamber when she got into it first, and as I kind of came in after, she's like everybody, like, oh my God, you're Elaine's husband? We love Elaine. And that's just Elaine. That's just her. Her heart is in the right place, and and she's a smart, intelligent woman, but her heart is always in the right place. And I think we just lead with that. We just lead with who we are. And it's not, I'm just not interested in meeting everyone in the room. I'm just interested in getting to know people, like really get to know somebody. So when I see them next time, it feels that way.
Let's go really deep.
Yeah, that's my model. And it's just very natural for me to do that, So, yeah.
I love it. I think, a lot of trial and error, and, we've landed at this point. So it feels right. It feels really good. And like, not for a lack of effort, we've tried every which way you can, and we keep hitting our head against the wall, and then we're navigating. But I think that's just a great example of just perseverance and being able to, always looking to find a way. And it's been really, really awesome. And like you said, it is a long game. It is a long game. However, you're moving big chunks of property that it's the equivalent of, selling 10 houses, right? In one. Yeah. So, you think of the time and energy that you put into 10 houses, and you're getting the same compensation off of one home in the market. And you start to look at, okay, well, all right, this is paying the equivalent of 10. I wouldn't expect this, the effort that I put in time into one house that would be, a smaller ticket. It doesn't mean that we don't care or we're not putting enough attention, but some of these just take time developing, take time, going through the process, being able to set up everything accurately. It's just a little more time consuming, it seems, throughout unless you find somebody that's just beyond motivated past the point of this thing's got to go away, then that moves with a little bit more urgency. But it seems for the most part in, the luxury segment of a legacy market, that it's patience is a massive virtue. It's almost as if you got to be the duck, right? Very calm, very patient, seeming above the water, but you're pedaling your butt off underneath is kind of maybe the the way I see and think about working with high net worth individuals that don't have this has to happen yesterday.
I think you're right on the money. I think that the one thing that, even if you are paddling like heck under the water, you're right about that. They need to see calm, collected individual that is not flustered by things and stays in control of the situation. And that's not, that needs to truly be how you act in these moments, because, even though, like, let's make no mistake, even though the prices go up, the propensity for emotion and ego does not go down, right? They still play a very large role in this. And so, and sometimes an even larger role. And so managing the soft skill of being able to manage that and help, especially when you get into people, more affluent individuals that have experienced more and moved in these spaces more, being able to direct them and advise them in their own best interest is not always easy. So I think that's also something that, that is a really important skill, especially as the market starts to do things like it's doing now, So,
It's so good, Fred. It's remarkable, and just your grit and determination and just the commitment to figure it out, and, trial and error, and trying, this approach on, and like, nope, backing out of it and kind of leaning in another way. It really is pretty awesome to see, kind of trying to figure out where the puck is in your market.
Yeah. Thank you. I first thank you, because you've been with me since I started. Elaine and I both, thank you. Just always having a sounding board, because it's just, so much, and just appreciate that. And I think, it came right down to this question. Like, we'd had lower price point homes, wonderful people, dear friends, like for maybe many of them forever, like they're just part of our family almost, or we're part of theirs. But I learned something quick about myself. Like, I can't do this any other way but the way I do it. I can't not pay a lot of attention to detail. I can't let things slide when it's someone's livelihood. It's not my money that's at stake, it's their money that's at stake. And I'm not judging anyone else for how they approach it, but it's just the only way I know how to do it. And so I knew I needed to, early on, became obvious. The only thing I could scale was the price of the home. I'm not terribly interested in building a 20-person, 30-person team. That happened in other parts of my life, and it's not what we're looking to do for now. But yeah, I think this opportunity here, it's all around us, and I think we have a great opportunity. Elaine's been a rock star rebranding the company and getting everything squared away, and it's going to be exciting now. We got a lot of work ahead of us, but we're pretty pumped up. So
yeah, it's like what we talked about earlier, right? That interesting challenge with the productive plan.
Yeah, I wrote that big ass. I'm like, keep looking at the plan. So
that's it. Focused action on your productive plan within your interesting challenge is it's the secret sauce of flow. And we come in and out of it, and I know there were points, right, where we were frustrated. It's because our thinking or our skill set wasn't in alignment to the challenge in the market ahead. And I feel you've done all of the work to be able to get it to that point. So it's really exciting to see, feels like we're in our lane. Now it's just cash conversion cycle, right? Now it's just a time.
Right. Yeah. A couple, like it's that we're at that stage now where I think that you mentioned it, 1, 2, or 3 of these launches us into this space in a very strong way. I think that we're super excited for that. So,
so good. Fred, how can folks get connected with you? How can they check out the new brand? Where do they need to go?
Yes. So the website is archandpillargroup.com, all one word. And my email address is fred@archandpillargroup.com. And there's Elaine@archandpillargroup.com. We are on under that same, everything's dialed in. So you'll find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. We'll start to see a lot of video presence, which is not there yet, but will be a lot more video presence on YouTube. And yeah, please reach out if there's any questions we can answer for sure. So
I love it. And you know, it's the, you know, a lot of trial and error and a lot of frustration. A lot of people give up, or they lean in and they choose whatever's easy in there, and not continuing to push to get to the type of business that they want, the type of business that they want to build. And you just knew, like you said, you know, I don't want to have 20 people. I want to have to where I can make more, do less. I mean, meaning less transactions, make more money. You know, just at a season of our life that's important to us, and navigating and figuring that out, but building a brand that aligns to the demands and the desires of the marketplace. I love that has always been your starting point, is really nailing the brand, and just appreciate how you carried that over from your previous, you know, profession, and how important it was to establish that, and doing the same thing here within this legacy market.
Yeah. I'll tell you just quickly, you know, when we did, anytime you rebrand and you're doing something like this, you know, I'm a deep analysis guy. So I've got like spreadsheets upon spreadsheets of names. And Elaine just kind of came into my office. She's like, maybe you should be something like a part of the house. And, you know, like, I think she said archway first. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, you know? And so it was her baby really to start, right? And then I moved it into arch and pillar, and we worked through it. But that brand, it really does mean something. And I say that, like, we gave out our new cards over the last week. Every single time I gave that card, they're like, that's a great name. Like, they didn't say that before. They looked at it and they're like, that's a great name. Like, you know, and so it's just building that thing that feels like, oh, you couldn't have a name like that if you just started. Like, you've got to be, you know, you're building that image right from the giddy up. And I think we can lean into that. It's not everything, but it's a part of it, you know? So,
So good. So good, Fred. It's been awesome, and excited for, you know, kind of stepping into the future and really nailing the things that you spend a lot of time, you know, working through. I mean, it seems like this whole year really, you know, really coming to this point. And it's really, really exciting to see. So, brother, I appreciate you jumping in here and really embodying what the whole Expert Mentor series has been about. And guys, get a chance, get connected with Fred. And really, if you're wanting to get into the luxury segment of any legacy market, I know Fred's done the deep work on the market. And I know, Fred, you would love to have conversation, help anybody out, just kind of how you're wired to pour back into people. So guys listening in, you want to, you know, pick his brain and dive a little bit deeper into kind of how Fred and Elaine are navigating the market that they're in. Get connected, and man, can't thank you enough. So
thank
brother,
you, John.
appreciate you.
Can't thank you enough, brother. Thank you so much.
You got it. Awesome. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. See ya.
See ya.